Namaskar. Coming to the topic straight away, as been introduced as an activist, Kashmiri activist, but I would like to mention it here. I am a Kashmiri activist, but I look at it Kashmir in the overall nationalistic Indian perspective because I firmly believe Kashmir jihad is not about just Kashmir. It's about the same Ghazwa-e-Hind crusade that began 1,000 years ago with the occupation of Sindh by Muhammad bin Qasim. And India has been suffering for all these 1,000 years. We have been suffering. We remained occupied by Muslim invaders, occupiers for about 800 years, followed by colonial Britain and then Portuguese. We had also had some time French interventions. So this is a continuous process. But the most impressive thing about this occupation of more than 1,000 years of India is that Hindu resilience that comes out to be so great. Because despite having been occupied for such a long period of time, unlike most of the countries in the world, we still remain Aborigine Hindus in India, 85% plus. That's a great compliment to Hindu resilience. And also, don't forget, over all these 1,000 years, there has been a continuous resistance against foreign occupation, against conversion, against genocidal process that has been on against Hindus for the past 1,000 years. So there have been little small wars happening all across India. We are never taught about it. Our NCRT, our left Nehruvian historians never teach us in our colleges, in our schools. So we need to be proud of it. Same thing happened in Kashmir, but our agony began a bit later, 700 years ago. We repulsed Muhammad bin Ghaznavi for about 2 times. He tried to invade Kashmir and capture Kashmir. But yes, we Hindus fought against him, and it was for about, he didn't succeed in Kashmir. And eventually, he stopped even attempting it, and he decided to focus on Somnath, which he ravaged so many times thereafter. Our agony began in the beginning of the 14th century. Shahmir, a fugitive from what's now North Waziristan area of Pakistan, he came to Kashmir to seek refuge, and at that time, as was prevalent in rest of India, we were undergoing those palace intrigues, and this man managed to enter the power circles of then Kashmir, and ultimately snatched power, became the first Muslim ruler of Kashmir in, I think it was 1345 or 1330, 1340. And that was the beginning of the genocidal process that Kashmiri Hindus have suffered since then. It was in about, I think, then we went to, we fought. I'm quite proud of my ancestry that who gave a stiff resistance to Islamist invaders, invasive occupation, Islamist occupations of Kashmir. And that's why we survived, despite having been under occupation for 700 years and being geographically cut off from mainland India. We survived on our own, but there have been attempts in between to seek support from the mainland India. So in 13, I think it was Anandpur Sahib, before Anandpur Sahib, we came and met Guru Tegh Bahadur in yeah, it was in Anandpur Sahib, 1675. A delegation led by Pandit Kriparam Dutt came to seek help from Guru Tegh Bahadur. And then historical fact that Guru Tegh Bahadur, how he offered his self martyrdom in the name of protection of Hindu Dharma. And Kriparam Dutt, incidentally, he did not go back to Kashmir. He chose to become a Khalsa. He stayed with Guru Gobind Singh and achieved martyrdom fighting Islamist Mughals in Punjab. So then we continued, our resistance continued, prosecution continued, genocidal process continued against Kashmiri Hindus, the Aborigines of Kashmiri Hindus. Then again, another attempt was made during Maharaja Ranjit Singh's period one of our then Kashmiri Hindu activist leaders, he went and sought help from Maharaja Ranjit Singh. And Maharaja Ranjit Singh did send his forces to Kashmir, and that's how Kashmir became part of Sikh Empire. Then we began when the Sikhs had some problems with the Sikhs lost their war against the English. So in 16 there was this Lahore Agreement of 1846 when Kashmir was given as in terms of war indemnity. The British acquired Kashmir from the Sikhs, and then in 1846 under Amritsar Agreement, a week later, the English returned this Kashmir to Maharaja Gulab Singh, the Dogras, again in lieu of war indemnity that was paid by, which was a process. And unlike the lies and propaganda spread that Kashmir was sold, Kashmir wasn't sold. It was a practice that time to pay war indemnity. And the colonial English, they sought this war indemnity from Dogras, who paid the money and acquired Kashmir in lieu of that. So, and it wasn't only Kashmir, it was many more areas that are now in Himachal Pradesh and in what is Pakistan, in certain areas in Pakistan now. So that's first lie that keeps on propping up whenever there is a discourse on Kashmir, that Kashmir was sold. Kashmir was never sold. In fact, Kashmir could never have been sold. I believe if we ever talk again about it, I'm not a historian, I'm not a statistician. I only speak, analyze, and try and give a perspective of in terms of contemporary narrative to build a narrative about Kashmir, because Kashmir is not was never part of India only because of Article 335A or because Maharaja Hari Singh acceded to India. Kashmir is, I believe, fountainhead of India's Sanatan civilizational ethos. I often say it, and I want to repeat it here. Kashmir ke kankar kankar mein shankar hai. Kashmir ke bindu bindu mein Ganga jal hai. If at all, if you go into the history, the lot that we claim to be, we take pride in our Sanatan Sanskrit civilization of India, you'll see there's a huge contribution from Kashmir. And even there is a school of thought that even Kalidasa was born in Kashmir. So coming back to the politics of it, coming back to the Muslim destruction of Aborigine, attempts to destroy the Aborigine civilization of Kashmir by the Islamist occupiers of Kashmir. So began the process. So when Dogras took over, and it continued for about 125 years, from Maharaja Ranjit Singh to Dogras, and then till 1947. And I say, just for reference, they say Islam was adopted by people. For people who read history, who are interested in knowing the facts, I would like to point it out. How many Hindus were converted in this period of 125 years since the arrival of Sikhs in Kashmir in Maharaja Ranjit Singh's forces? None. In fact, there began the process of Garwapsi was started by Kashmiri Hindu saint volunteers. Swami Ramji, we celebrated his Jayanti very recently. I call him a saint. He was a revolutionary saint. He was the one when, of course, there were problems in overall Hindu community not to accept those who had converted to Islam earlier. There was a resistance all across India. But this Swami Ramji, he ensured that Kashmiri Hindus were accepted back to the Hindu fold who had converted to Islam under duress. So that process instead began with the arrival of during the rule of Sikhs and then followed by Dogras. Maharaja Dogras was the most secular Raj empire in amongst the whole of princely states of India. It was a very progressive regime. Maharaja Hari Singh had 50% Muslims and 50% Hindus in his army, and he would always claim, "My dharma is my people. The people of Kashmir were his dharma." He would always claim, and history has tried to create a villain out of Maharaja Hari Singh. but it's very untrue. And I always say, last word is yet to be written on Maharaja Hari Singh. He did not, unlike the propaganda that's again spread by these Nehruvian Congress based historians and academicians, that Maharaja Hari Singh did not want to accede to India. It's a lie. It's in the Round Table Princes Conference in London. He claimed there that I am an Indian. I'm a proud Indian. That what irked those people who wanted to continue to retain that kind of Muslimhood in Kashmir because of political experiencing. So accession happened. Just before accession, a brief account of when Mahatma Gandhi reportedly saw a ray of hope in Kashmir. By the time Indian Army arrived in Kashmir in 1947, after the accession, the whole of what is now occupied Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh was cleansed of non-Muslims. There's not a single Hindu or Sikh that was left in occupied Jammu, Kashmir by Pakistanis. And yet, Mahatma Gandhi chose to see a ray of hope in Kashmir, and we are always thrown this at our face. Those very Islamists of Kashmir that look, the fact what Mahatma Gandhi said. But that's again was a political statement, totally ignoring the fact that occupied Jammu Kashmir was cleansed of non-Muslims by Pakistani army, Pakistani raiders. So India got freedom 1947. We got freedom 1947. Kashmir acceded legitimately to the Indian Union, but again the forces in Kashmir and the forces there in Delhi tried to play with the destiny of Kashmir. I always say Kashmir was not manipulated, and it has cost India heavily. This was the lack of statesmanship, lack of political will in the leadership of India in 1947, 1946, 1947. When two-nation theory of Jinnah, which was what? It was about supremacy and exclusivity of Islam. It was about Hindus and Muslims cannot live together. Congress says that we do not accept Jinnah's two-nation theory. Yet, they acceded to Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah's demands to create the same Islamist environment in Kashmir, same Islamist system in Kashmir, same Islamist exclusivity in Kashmir, right under secular watch, when Article 370 was granted to Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah. And let me again refer, because very important, today you see at Shaheen Bagh, Islamists and Ambedkarites getting together and raising voice against CAA, which was what? I, as a Kashmiri Hindu, can imagine what we suffered right under Indian secular watch in independent India. In 40 years after independence of India, Kashmiri Hindus suffered genocide in 1990. You can imagine the plight of Hindus and Sikhs that Nehru and Congress abandoned in Pakistan in 1947. Poor Hindus and Sikhs who could not make into the mainland in 1947. We literally abandoned them to the mercy of Pakistani Islamists, knowing that Pakistan was created for exclusively for Muslims, knowing that what was witnessed in the streets of Lahore, Hindu and Sikh women were made to dance naked on that typical Punjabi dhol played by this Pakistani jihadi. Despite that, we left those poor Hindus and Sikhs in Pakistan. And CAA was to grant right to life and destiny, life and dignity to those Hindu and Sikhs we abandoned in Pakistan. We were trying to compensate for the sins of Congress when they did it in 1947, just forgot about Hindus and Sikhs in Pakistan. And these Ambedkarites, Islamists, and so-called left liberal got together at Shaheen Bagh to oppose CAA, because that was to grant to ensure some kind of dignity to whoever is left in Pakistan. 24% was the population of Pakistan of Hindus and Sikhs in 1947, and today it is reduced to 2%, and there is not a human right voice talking about where did these Hindus manage. So I am not surprised they are not talking about that, because they are not even concerned about what happens to the Hindu. Hindu's lives do not matter in secular India as well. So when Ambedkarites raise their flag in the name of Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar at Shaheen Bagh, that's again a farce. That's again a fraud to play with the sentiments of a particular one segment of Hindu society. Because when Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar approached to accept Article 370 in the Constitution of India, can you imagine what were his words? He said, I will not allow this betrayal of my country through my hands. He refused to accept it. In fact, when there was debate in the Constitution Assembly of India on Article 370, Babarao Ambedkar, he boycotted that session of the Parliament of India. He was a statesman. He was a statesman when they come together, Ambedkarites come together with Islamists, which has a historical context, because so-called Dalit leaders tried to collaborate with Muhammad Ali Jinnah. If I don't know whether many Indians aren't aware of it, the first law minister of Pakistan was Jagannath Mandal. He was a partner of Muslim League, and then it's again history that man suffered so much indignity, and he was humiliated by Muslim League in so-called independent Pakistan, that he fled Pakistan and died an unknown death in Calcutta later on. Because at the time of 1947 war, when Pakistanis were at war with India, the first Kashmir war with Pakistan, this Jagannath Mandal was not allowed even presence in cabinet meetings of Pakistan. And let me also bring it to your notice when we're talking of CAA, just briefly, the Dalits of Pakistan who wanted to come to India, they were not allowed by Pakistani authorities, because they were told, agar ye log chale jayenge to Karachi ke gutter kaun saaf karega. And we Hindus, we Indians, we secular India, we tolerated all that. And we had the audacity to oppose CAA right in the heart of the capital. So it was in reference to Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar. He was a true statesman, a son of India. We take pride in Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar. It's a dirty party politics that reduced Ambedkar's stature to one segment of the society, and it suited all parties across. I'm glad that Ambedkar is coming to the limelight. He deserves a place at the national level. So Kashmir, you refuse to acknowledge, the Nehru Congress refused to acknowledge Nijna's two-nation theory, at least officially, at least on public platform. But in Kashmir, they created the same Pakistan, same little Pakistan on the territory of India by granting Article 370, followed by 35A to Kashmiri Muslims. Especially, I repeat, Kashmiri Muslim. No Dogra wanted it, no Ladakhi wanted it. It was no Kashmiri Hindu wanted it. Obviously, Kashmiri Hindu did not want it. And it was only to please and appease Sheikh Muhammad Abdullah. Abdullahs, I consider, are the original Islamists of Kashmir. These three generations of Abdullahs are responsible principally for death and destruction that has taken place in Kashmir in the past 70 years. And that's the Kashmir Jihad is an outcome of that. They kept on feeding this opium of Azadi, the opium of supremacy of Islam, the opium of exclusivity of Islam to poor Muslims of Kashmir. And so that led to the emergence of Kashmir Jihad. And how did it happen? It did not happen. 1990 did not happen overnight. You see, genocide follows a particular process. It begins with identifying the community that has to be targeted. It happened with us. In fact, Kashmiri Hindus suffered all these processes that are related to genocidal process, to all these aspects of process. What happened was, community had to be targeted. So Kashmiri Hindus became, because we did not give up. We were told by Nehru and Congress to merge with National Conference, to be part of the overall community there, but we still retained. We could not have done it otherwise, because we retained our religion, our faith, our dharma for 700 years of despite 700 years of prosecution. There was no way we would have compromised on our dharma. There was no way we would have compromised on our Indianness. Therefore, we became exclusive we had to be targeted. We were seen as flying tricolor across the valley of Kashmir. As I said, we were 100% Hindu population of Kashmir 700 years ago. Over these 700 years of genocidal persecution, we gradually shrunk, but we did not live in ghettos. Unlike the normal impression, the minorities live in ghettos in most parts of this country. For example, in Delhi, you have Old Delhi, you have Jama Masjid area. In Kashmir, no. Since we're Aborigines, we kept on shrinking, but we retained our presence across Kashmir. We had villages where no Kashmiri Hindu lived, but there was a temple, a functional temple existing in that village, and which would come into life every time there was a particular ritual or a tradition attached to the temple. We carried tricolor on our chest in Kashmir. That's why we were targeted. We were seen as a hindrance in complete Islamization of Kashmir. It was every morning you would hear shank from every temple across the valley in Kashmir. On Amarnath, for example, Amarnath continues to irk Kashmiri Islamists, because it's at least on those 40 days every year you have Bam Bam Bole reverberating across the valley, at least along the route of Amarnath Yatra. So we became targets. So how they identified us? I'll tell you, there is a biography of Sheikh Muhammad Abdullah. It's called Atish-e-Chinar. You know how he refers to Kashmiri Hindus in that biography? He calls us fifth columnists. This is how the process of identifying and demonizing community begins. He calls us fifth columnists. In that one particular step, by the way, his English translation of this Atish-e-Chinar has been done by Khushwant Singh, none other than by Khushwant Singh himself. And no Indian scholar, no Indian thinker had ever audacity to question Sheikh Muhammad Abdullah when he was alive. Why did he demonize Hindus in his book? So when you identify Kashmiri Hindus as fifth columnists, you make two statements. One, that India is an enemy state, because fifth columnists are those who collaborate with an enemy state. So Sheikh Muhammad Abdullah, calling Kashmiris as Kashmiri Hindus a fifth columnist, he was identifying as India not a friendly state. And we, Kashmiri Hindus, being staunch Indians, he chose to call us fifth columnists. So that begins, with that began the process of demonizing Kashmiri Hindus right under India's secular watch. Then there's another aspect of genocidal processes to deprive the targeted community of its rights and privileges. Despite merit, Kashmir was a unique place where, despite merit, Kashmiri Hindus would be denied admission in professional colleges. There are many of us would go to the court to seek justice, and many of us, like me, we chose not to fight the cases. We got admission wherever we got and did professional courses outside Kashmir. Then depriving the local, these targeted communities of, for example, the government jobs. So this process began, yet we did not compromise, yet we did not complain. We didn't come to Delhi to seek justice. We were just happy there in our own homes, because the physical assault was not part of that process. And we retain our dharma there, despite all this happening around us. Then what happened in 1990? Again, this was a final assault. In 1986, they did a trial. This is also part of the genocidal process. The targeted community is targeted to see the responses. In 1986, there was a pre-planned attack on Kashmiri Hindus, especially in South Kashmir. And India chose silence. We made representations in Delhi, yet there was no response. And the person who was supposedly at the helm of, who led those riots against Kashmiri Hindus in 1986, was then in Congress. Then he joined hands with various parties in Delhi, mainstream parties. So India chose silence. They got encouraged, and came this 1989-90. We knew, Kashmiri Hindus knew the neighbors are going across the border to take training. I don't know what was our intelligence, what were our intelligence agencies doing that time. The Kashmiri Muslims would come to Kashmiri Hindu neighbors to seek winter wear, jackets, shoes. And we knew that he is going across the border. And there was popularly understood, there are local buses, local small transport vehicles picking up guys. They were giving traditional farewell by the local Muslim communities to these boys to go across the border to take training in Pakistan. Yet India chose silence. Then came 1989-90, January 19. I tell you honestly, we do not seek sympathy when we recall the genocide, our genocide. We want India to be aware of the fact that what Kashmiri Hindus suffered in 1990 is the same process of Ghazwa-e-Hind. Kashmir was nearly cleansed of Kashmiri Hindus in 1990, right under India's secular watch. Their eyes are on Lal Killa in Delhi. They want to occupy Kashmir. They want to reclaim the land of Mughals. They want to reclaim the land of Timurling. They want to reclaim the land of Babur. They want to reclaim the land of Abdalis and Muhammad bin Qasim. So please do not think that Kashmir is only Kashmiri Hindus' problem. That's what we have been trying to talk about all these 30 years. That's what has been our effort, our endeavor to reach out to the rest of India to generate that kind of sentiment, because if you compromise on Kashmir, there will be scores of Kashmirs emerging in the rest of India. And I'm glad that we saw the resonance in resurgent India. And I'm glad that today 130 crore Indians are stakeholders of Kashmir. It's because of this pressure that we've built over these years. It's because of the political pressure Narendra Modi had, and he showed political spine on Article 370 was abrogated last year. So 1990, we recall and remember. In fact, we nourish our wounds by recalling that chilling winter of 1990. And that January 1990 was a horrible night. What happened on that particular night? The whole of Kashmir was on the streets of Kashmir. The Kashmiri Muslims were on the streets of Kashmir. The mosques, the speakers of mosque were reverberating horrible, threatening, frightening calls for Kashmiri Hindus to leave Kashmir. There were crowds in the streets speaking Indian dogs, leave Kashmir. And the slogans, if I recall, I tell you, they were horrible. And it did not begin. The killing did not begin on January 19. January 19 was the climax that we Kashmiri Hindus suffered. And we will continue to remember that. As I said, I continue to nourish my wound by recalling those horrible nights of January 1990. My people recorded what my family suffered, what they narrate, what they suffered individually. Can you imagine? We gave money to kids, small kids in the family. Elders gave money, put it in their pockets, told them follow this route towards the south, take to the highway. Small kids. If we get separated, where you have to go, just keep on following this route to Jawahar Tunnel. This is the instruction that was given to the kids. On this 19th of January, girls were put into attic with husk around them, with a matchbox given in their hands. If this house is raided, please burn yourselves. This is what we suffered. And this is what we remember and recall on every January 19. In fact, we activists, we live it all through the year. But January 19 is a community remembrance of that particular frightening night. And what were the slogans, for example? What were the slogans? I repeat, the killing began way back in September 1989, when the stalwart of Kashmiri Hindu community, the leader of Kashmiri Hindus was Pandit Tikala Tipulu was assassinated by the Islamists. It began with there, and the killings continued. Justice Ganju, 80-year-old retired judge, he was killed in the streets of Kashmir. You know what was his fault? He had sentenced Maqbool Butt. If you recall, he was one of the first jihadists, Pak stooge operating in Kashmir. He had sentenced, as a sessions judge, he had sentenced Maqbool to death. And can you imagine? He was the only Hindu involved in the total case, beginning with the investigation of the case. The investigating officer of the case was a Kashmiri Muslim. The public prosecutor was a Kashmiri Muslim. All witnesses were Kashmiri Muslims. The lawyers were Kashmiri Muslims. The only Hindu involved in that case was Justice Neelkant Ganju. That was his only crime, and he was assassinated. How they targeted women, how the rapes were executed. So they killed only about, government claims they killed about 300 people, but we have our own statistics, our activists have collected figures, it reaches about 2,000 people. But I repeat, they killed 2,000 people, but each killing was so horrible. It was so horrible and designed to be horrible, to instill fear in the rest of the community to flee Kashmir. And the slogans you heard on that particular horrible night was, "Eh Kashmir ke Musalmano, Hindustan se azadi ka matlab, al jihad, al jihad, al jihad." This is you hear in Kabul. Oh, the Muslims of Kashmir, if you want the freedom of India would mean al jihad, al jihad, al jihad. This you hear in Kabul. This you heard ISIS raise slogans in Middle East. This is what we heard. This is what we reverberated from the mosques of Kashmir. Kashmir mein rehna hoga, Allahu Akbar kehna hoga. I say, if you want to live in Kashmir, you have to chant Allahu Akbar. Pakistan se rishta ke la ilaha illallah. What is our association with Pakistan is la ilaha illallah. Kashmir mein rehna hoga, Allahu Akbar kehna hoga. If you want to stay in Kashmir, you have to recite Allahu Akbar. I say, Pakistan but of rust but nevsan. We want Pakistan along with the Kashmiri Hindu women, but without Kashmiri Pandits. This is what was the most horrifying moment for Kashmiri Hindus when this slogan reverberated from the mosques of Kashmir. ऐसे कैसे पाकिस्तान बटा रुस्तु पाकिस्तान, हमको चाहिए पाकिस्तान, कश्मीरी हिंदू औरतों के साथ, कश्मीरी हिंदू मर्दों के बगैर. This is what triggered the exodus, mass exodus of the Kashmiri Pandits on 19th of January 2019, and it continued. And ironically, the whole population gets displaced, and India watches with silence. Many of our Kashmiri Hindus had not even crossed Jawahar Tunnel. And just imagine, when you talk about Jammu Kashmir is Jammu Kashmir and Ladakh. Prior to last August 2019, Ladakh was also part of Jammu Kashmir. It was Jammu Kashmir and Ladakh. And the difference between the summer capital of Jammu Kashmir and Ladakh, that was Srinagar, and the winter capital of Jammu Kashmir and Ladakh, that was Jammu, is just 288 kilometers. Jammu is only 288 kilometers south of Srinagar. Imagine the difference. We fled Srinagar, we fled Kashmir, and we took refuge just 288 kilometers away in the plains of Jammu Kashmir state, and where the geography is different, language is different, culturally it's totally different. And those people, the people of Jammu, received us. They opened their hearts for us. While at the neighborhoods of Kashmir, hundreds of years of old neighborhoods of Kashmir, they collaborated because they closed their doors or windows on us when the jihadists were hunting for Kashmiri Hindus in Kashmir. The police of Kashmir was demoralized to the extent, I take pride, I salute the Jammu Kashmir police today. They are in the forefront of fighting this Kashmir jihad. But because in 1990, when the leader, Farooq Abdullah, the chief minister, he fled. He fled on this particular day, 19 January, leaving us Kashmiri Hindus at the mercy of this Kashmiri Islamist, Kashmiri jihadis who were holding AK-47 rifles and looking for Kashmiri Hindus from mahalla to mahalla, from town to town in the villages of Kashmir. And he fled. And you know who was the Home Minister of the Indian Union that time? Mufti Muhammad Syed, India's first Muslim Home Minister. He's supposed to be a very powerful ministry. And what was he doing? When we say we need to investigate the genocide of Kashmir, I'll come to it later on. When you have to investigate the genocide of Kashmiri Hindus, we demand those who were at the helm in Kashmir and in Delhi that time should also be investigated, even if it amounts to investigating them posthumously. मरणोपरांत उनको इन्वेस्टिगेट करना चाहिए जो उस वक्त दिल्ली और कश्मीर के अंदर थे, जिनकी नाक तले कश्मीरी हिंदू का नरसंहार हुआ, right under their secular nose, right under their secular watch. 5 lakh Kashmiri Hindus had to fled their homes in herds. And here we reach 288 kilometers south of Kashmir. Indianness, dharma, to be greeted by the people of Jammu. They opened their small homes for us. Can you imagine? Can you imagine in Jammu, a small place with very limited municipal resources? Because out of Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh, the government, the system only was Kashmir origin, Kashmir, and only Kashmir centric. Jammu had very bare minimum municipal facilities, and the valiant Dogras of Jammu chose to share those municipal resources with us. And that's how we survived, because we got a home in exile in Jammu. And we could keep on this resistance alive because we got that home in Jammu. That's why I find I miss no opportunity to thank the valiant Dogras of Jammu who gave us refuge, who gave us shelter. They didn't pity us. They just held us, embraced us as part of them. And today, together we fight. Together we resist the expansion of Kashmir Jihad into Dogra land. Because as I say, Jammu is today the last demographic border after the genocide of Kashmiri Hindus in Kashmir. Today, Jammu remains the last demographic border of India, unconditional demographic border in our northwest. We have suffered and we have lived through it in January. And every year we recall those horrors of January. And we, as I said, under normal circumstances, refugees everywhere, they have to compromise on their dignity. But as I said, we are proud of my heritage. My ancestors, they saved my Jineo, despite that persecution for 700 years. You can imagine what we must have suffered when it was an isolated, geographically isolated land. When we saw this final assault come on us right under India's secular watch, as I say, 40 years after the independence of India. We were the people who are revered in Kashmir by Islamists. They say they gave us the light, and they set a protocol how Kashmiri Hindus are to be treated. It was not only to demolish our temples. It was not only to demolish our symbols of existence in Kashmir. It was also how to demonize, how to denigrate the community as human beings. There was a protocol to be followed. Kashmiri Hindu could not wear a tilak. Kashmiri Hindu could not carry a sword because it was a part of costume. It was a part of a tradition. As I said, we repulsed attacks of Muhammad Ghaznavi, who ravaged Somnath. जुम्मे के जुम्मे आता रहा वो सोमनाथ, लेकिन हम कश्मीरी हिंदू ने, unlike the impression that we did not fight, Brahmins and Hindus cannot fight, we fought against Ghaznis, And twice he attempted to invade Kashmir, to capture Kashmir. He failed. But we were overwhelmed by our adversary that we lost it. But our resistance did remain alive all these 700 years. So during this period of time, we couldn't ride a horse. And all temples, I give an example of Kali temple in Kashmir, for example. Kali temple in Kashmir. You know what is that temple reduced to now? Look at our resistance, our resilience. The temple is symbolically reduced to the outer wall of that shrine that stands today on a Hindu temple. And we have the traditional yearly ritual. We do it on the bank of the river, on the boundary wall of that complex, which was a Bhavya Kali temple once upon a time. I, as a Kashmiri Hindu, never called that locality by the name it is known now. We still call it, till we lived there, we called it Kali's, Kalika. In Sanskrit, you have these grammatical changes. If you have to say Kali's, Kalihund. I always pass by this street, Kalihund. Kahan jana hai? Kalihund. Kiske paas jana? Kalihund jana hai. Knowing that this temple does not belong to me anymore. The only thing I owned then, Kashmiri Hindus owned that, was outer surface, a small patch, maybe about 15 feet by 10 feet patch on a boundary or outer face of the boundary wall of that whole huge complex that once stood there. Yes, India chose silence, but I'm glad that we have been able to regenerate the sentiment in the rest of India. Today, 130 crore Indians are with us. I think about this genocidal process, it continues till now. It continues. And may I tell you, despite what happened on 5th of August 2019, it was a historical moment. I will leave a lot for the question answer session because there may be a lot many inquiries later to that. 2019, it was a historical moment because it was for the first time Indian state realized that we had allowed an Islamo-fascist system to flourish on the soil of India and Kashmir. And Article 370 was responsible for that. It was abrogated. And I also want to bring into the notice of the people of India, just by reviewing Article 370, just by abrogating 35A, you do not reverse what has been flourishing in Kashmir for these 70 years. Because of these two pieces of constitutional arrangements, an Islamo-fascistic mindset flourished in Kashmir. It would take a lot to dismantle that. And that process began on 5th of August 2019. Kashmir Jihad is a military problem. It has to be tackled militarily. And when I say I claim Kashmir, when I give references to other refugees, other communities that have suffered genocide, for example, Yazidis in Middle East, they suffered genocide at the hands of ISIS goons, and India started talking about it. India got to understand the barbarism, what Islamism can inflict on humanity only through when they heard about the barbarity of jihadi Johns in Middle East. We suffered the same barbarity 30 years ago. We had this Sarwanand Premi, scholar, Sarwanand Premi. His eyes were gouged out. He was killed in cold blood. Before that, his son was killed. And that time, ironically, this Sarwanand Premi scholar, the martyr, the Shaheed, was translating Quran. They didn't, and they knew it. They didn't spare him. Tikalal Tiplu, the first casualty of this Kashmir Jihad, he was associated with BJP, but more than that, he was a proud Indian. And he was a lawyer. And most of the time, he would be doing pro bono cases for Muslims. He wasn't spared. They were the rapes that were committed. I feel, it is such a shameful thing to recall the names of those people who were the women who were raped. But it's important to the nation know. That's why I call them martyrs. When I called Girija Tikku, it's with whole dignity. I call her a martyr. She had taken refuge in a camp in Jammu. She had fled Kashmir. This is important to recall these names because this must resonate. This must resonate in the minds of Hindus, what Hindus in Kashmir suffered. This Girija Tikku was called, she took refuge in Jammu. But her colleagues back in Kashmir, they lied to her. They conned her. They told her, come back. Things are better here. Come and collect your salary. This woman she trusted her colleagues. She went back. And she was kidnapped, suffered gang rape, and then she was cut into two on a saw machine. And we have been talking about Kashmir all these years, that Kashmir is a political problem. The people who should have been sent to gallows 30 years ago for the crimes committed against humanity against Kashmiri Hindus became sahibs on television stations, television studios in Delhi. The leading journalists of India called them sahibs. Yasin Malik, a warlord, Islamist warlord, jihadi. He was addressed as beta by retired justices in seminar halls of Delhi. You know what was the narrative? What was the narrative all these years before 5th of August, I say, 2019. Even when BJP's first tenure, Narendra Modi's first tenure, they continued the same process when they went into alliance with Mehbooba Mufti. The same process that began with Nehru and Congress 70 years ago. Thank God, our pressure prevailed that broke that alliance. I can assure you, if they had not broken that alliance with Mehbooba Mufti, the results of electoral results of 2019 would not have been same, because this is resurgent India. I communicate with people at ground level. I know what we have done these 30 years, and again say, I take pride in having reached out to the people of India. Today, the people of India are aware. The Sanatani Hindu is aware now what India has suffered, what India can suffer. That's why you see this. That's why Narendra Modi showed that political spine. They had put it in their manifesto, which they have been doing for a long time. But this time it was fulfilled because they knew 130 crore Indians are demanding and wanting it, and that's how it was implemented. But successive governments have been doing what they did. In every auditorium in Delhi, the narrative was not about whether India should compromise on Kashmir. The discourse was about how much India could be goaded to bend on Kashmir. Kashmir was written off. It was written off even in Agra. Thank God that Agra summit failed. What was left was taken over by Manmohan Singh government. They were almost preparing for Manmohan Singh to receive Nobel Prize. Thank God we did not. It didn't happen. I believe India is we have the blessings of the God Almighty. मैं कहता हूं ना कि कश्मीर के कंकर कंकर में शंकर है, कश्मीर के बिंदु बिंदु में गंगा जल है. Despite these attempts to disown Kashmir by the successive governments in Delhi, Kashmir remains part of India, because Kashmir is the fountainhead of India's Sanatana civilization ethos. Now, how do we go back? We are still talking about Kashmir. We're still talking about elections in Kashmir, but the name Kashmiri Hindu again takes secondary status. I see there's a lot of excitement because we hold elections in Kashmir. We get good positive results that suit us. We talk about the results also, but nobody is talking about the fact that Kashmir is still not having Kashmiri Hindus back, the Aborigine Kashmiri Hindus are still living in exile. And I repeat through you, through the people of India, I want this government and everybody to know we are not going back to Kashmir as cattle. You can't just put us back in the buses and trucks and send us back to Kashmir. No. We are proud Indians. And we want to reclaim Kashmir, our Kashmir. So first of all, the Indian state has to acknowledge what Kashmiri Hindus suffered was genocide. Because this is also for the first time Narendra Modi government acknowledged it, although in a different manner. When they put ban on Jammu Kashmir Liberation Front, they say this organization was responsible for genocide of Kashmiri Hindus. So what we demand is Government of India formally acknowledges that what Kashmiri Hindus suffered was genocide. Just because we have survived, just because we kept the fire of Kashmir alight all these 30 years, does not mean that genocide can be put under the carpet. One of the major aspects of genocide is also to see that the will to survive in the survivors is killed. The resistance in the survivors is dismantled and demolished forever. We defied that aspect of genocide. Our tormentors thought that we will get lost in the crowds of the rest of India. We'd get lost in the streets and lanes of India, in the dust of India. No. Instead, what we did, we became instrumental in awakening 130 crore Indians. And that was our endeavor. That is what we wanted. There is not a single auditorium in Kashmir from where from Kashmiri Hindus have not been evicted. I, for example, there's not a single auditorium in Delhi from I have not been evicted because we resisted the discourse that was happening in the auditoriums of Delhi. Patronized by the then state government, then by Indian state. I cannot forget the day when I heard Justice Sacha, late Justice Sacha, addressing Yasin Malik in India International Center. Beta, pehle tum bologe. And we were in the audience. We resisted. And we were detained by the police till deliberations were completed. Can you imagine? I have never seen police in India International Center. I was arrested right in front of the cameras because the Indian state that time wanted that conversation to happen. And what was it? Pakistan Hindu Maitri Friendship, leading journalist, Times of India editor, he is no more, Dilip Padgaonkar. We must remember the role played by academicians. It was not only the politics of India that was trying to compromise on Kashmir. Dilip Padgaonkar was an interlocutor in Kashmir. That's why it's important to remember. I recall one TV program, Syed Naqvi, a veteran journalist, he asked Dilip Padgaonkar, what is this fact about Kashmiri Hindus? So casually they were talking about Kashmiri Hindus as if we were not even humans. Syed Naqvi asked Dilip Padgaonkar, what is this fact about Kashmir? What happened to them? Who is responsible for their exodus? And Dilip Padgaonkar, with a smirk, he says, oh yes, Jagmohan was partly responsible and Islamists were partly responsible. Jagmohan lie has been, it originated in Kashmir. It was propagated in Delhi by left liberals. Jagmohan could not have organized exodus of Kashmiri Hindus overnight. On 19th of January, he had taken, or he had only taken over as the governor of Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. And he was in Jammu, whereas the theater of Jihad was in Srinagar, 288 kilometers away. There were hardly any communications there because everything was dismantled and disrupted except for the power to the mosques of Kashmir so that the speakers would continue to reverberate, to rant slogans to frighten Kashmiri Hindus. I recall Balkrishan Ganju, martyr. He was a telecommunications engineer. He knew he was on the hit list. He was advised to leave the place, but he chose to serve the nation. He chose to serve the nation, stayed back, saying, if I leave this place, who will maintain the communication, strategically important communication between Srinagar and Delhi? You know how they killed him? When he got to know that jihadis are approaching his house, he hid in his attic in a drum, rice. You know, normally in Kashmiri Hindus, we collect grains for the winter. We store here grains for the winter in our attic. We used to do that. In a rice drum, he hid himself. Jihadis came to his house, looked for him, went even every room. They didn't find him. They left the place. The neighbors called them back. Can you imagine? The neighbors called them back, showed them he's in his attic. And when they reached the attic, they did not even bother to remove the lid of the drum. They just shot. They emptied their AK-47 right into the drum. And when his wife said, "Hame bhi maar do," his children and wife, "Ab hamara jeene ka kya maqsad hai? Why should we live anymore?" He said, "No, iske liye rone ke liye koi hona chahiye. Somebody should live to cry for it." This is what we suffered. There are women, I don't want to name them. Sarla Bhatt was there are martyrs. We must name them. When we go back to Kashmir, in our own Kashmir, I'm going to have a museum there. I'm going to have a museum of genocide of Kashmiri Hindus there. I'm going to put them on a big pedestal there. Israelis have Yad Vashem in Israel. We're going to have our own Yad Vashem in Kashmir, where of course those people who helped us, like Dogras, they will be on the highest on the pedestal because they gave us home in exile. Sarla Bhatt was a nurse in a medical college there. She overheard the doctors planning to do something, Islamist doctors. And she was kidnapped, raped, murdered. Her naked body was thrown on the street of Srinagar. With JKL branded her own body with cigarette bits. This was Sarla Bhatt. Kashmiri Hindu martyr. India chose silence. And repeat, I maintain, this is not behke hue naujawan Kashmir ke andar. This is not illiterate Kashmiris who are jihadis there. They are well educated. We have had doctors. Dr. Guru was a leading cardiologist of Kashmir, an Islamist. It's a different matter. The jihadis, when they realized, Pakistan Rawalpindi realized that he has done his job, he was eliminated by his own people. I was the other day on a platform, it's Global Counterterrorism Council, I'm part of that. So I was anchoring a 2-day session on this terror funding and money laundering which goes into terror funding. I had an opportunity to interview the current Foreign Secretary of Sri Lanka. We talked about that Easter bombings last year in Sri Lanka. See the political will to take the terror head on. He had no qualms in speaking to Indian people. Of course, this particular webinar was going across the world. There were lot many attendees from Middle East, from Philippines, from America, from Europe. This man says, and he agreed when I said, these are not ordinary terrorists. They seek spiritual ecstasy in killing and getting killed in the name of faith, in the name of Islam. He agreed. He said, yes, the Easter bombings were done by people who drove BMWs. And in Kashmir, we compromise on the basic aspect of it. We say, no, not everybody is involved in that. They're back away. This is what when the previous first tenure, or we heard that in the first tenure of Narendra Modi government also hear that. Ye badke hue chhod do. 5,000 stone pelters were released in one day. And the stone pelters are the foot soldiers of Kashmir Jihad. The AK-47 wielding cadre comes out of these stone pelters. Burhan Wani, that infamous poster boy of Kashmir Jihad. There's a leading journalist in Delhi. Before Burhan Wani was killed in encounter, she went and interviewed that headmaster father, that if he was not scared that his son is going to get killed one day. The father says, I have dedicated my son to Allah. And when he was killed in that encounter, the same journalist, Hindustan Times journalist, a very senior journalist, she again went to the same headmaster father, interviewed him, whether he was mourning the death of his son. Look at the height of indoctrination. He says, no, I had already dedicated my son to Allah. And you called it a political problem? When they say, kafiro e zalimo Kashmir hamara chhod do, when they dictated this term to us, e kafiro e zalimo Kashmir hamara chhod do. This is the level of indoctrination they have. Raliv, Galiv, Yat Saliv. This is the slogan. This is a rant which reverberates across wherever you have global jihad conflicts in the world. Either you merge, either you perish, or be ready to die, or you flee. This is what ISIS said in when they captured, when they entered Iran, Syria. This is what happened in Kashmir 30 years ago. You know the currency in circulation in January 1990, because those days you used to get salary in hard currency. Every note had a note on it, a slogan, jihadi slogan on it. The watches every Kashmiri was supposed to have Pakistani time on it. Most Kashmiri Hindus started wearing beard because otherwise we will get identified. I just want to understand why, what happens in Afghanistan today, what happened in Syria. Same thing has been happening in Kashmir. If Government of India today publishes a white paper on Kashmir Jihad to identify the jihadis from across the world who died in Kashmir combating Indian forces, you will be shocked. It's not that you have mercenaries getting together in Afghanistan, fighting wars in Afghanistan and ISIS. We have had Kerala Muslim jihadists combating Indian forces in Kashmir. Yet India chooses to call it a political problem. Kashmir Jihad is thriving and alive. It is going slow because there are strict restrictions and they cannot be deployed forever. So Kashmir Jihad has to be fought militarily, the way jihad wars are being fought in Afghanistan and Syria, Iraq, everywhere else. So how do you see the reverse of Kashmiri? How do you reverse this genocide? You can't just put them in the trucks, you say everything's okay. You don't give me 5,000 jobs under Prime Minister package, which is being touted these days as one of the ways to reverse the genocide of Kashmiri Hindus. I tell you the state today, listen, Kashmiri Hindus refuse to be used as guinea pigs in India's continued secular experimentations in Kashmir. We're not just stakeholders of Kashmir, we're aborigines of Kashmir, we're the owners of Kashmir. This Prime Minister's package program for jobs, can you imagine? Government of India is obliged to give us the jobs. We have deprivation in our community. We don't beg because that is not in our genes. But that does not mean that we are all economically well off. Many of us have done good for ourselves. But there are many Kashmiri Hindus who suffer deprivation. And the little amount of dole that Government of India gives us, which amounts to a few rupees per person in a family, is not enough. 13,000 rupees per family of 6 people is not enough for a family to survive. So when you give them jobs out of state quota, you're not doing them any favors. By attaching conditions to it, it becomes a favor. It's a gross violation of human rights when you give those lowly paid jobs to Kashmiri Hindu boys and girls, employ them in the very villages and towns of Kashmir from where their parents were hounded out 30 years ago. But these boys and girls are compelled and forced to take these jobs. They go back. Yet they are given these jobs after so much of undergoing so much of pressure and humiliation. 45 Kashmiri Hindus, boys and girls, are standing protesting outside Press Club in Jammu for the past 90 plus days. They were selected for these jobs in Kashmir, but they are not being issued the appointment letters. They are braving cold, braving COVID to come all the way from Jagti camp, which is outside the Jammu city, refugee camp, using public transport, sit on the dharna, leave their small kids back with their elderly parents, go back. And two of the protesting boys and girls, they already caught corona. And the government continues to be indifferent. And if you see the agreement they have to sign for that small job, which could be granted to anywhere in Kashmir, anywhere in Jammu province, they are sent to Kashmir deliberately to create a semblance of Hindus in Kashmir. They live in camps there also. So, formally, if you want, which we demand, the reversal of genocide must begin with the formal acknowledgement by the Government of India that what Kashmiri Hindus suffered was genocide. And when you acknowledge it formally, then you also have to follow the rules of reversal of genocide. Because India is one of the first countries, signatories of UN Convention of Genocide. So India is obliged to follow, and it gives a way out for the state government to follow this menace, to track and contain this menace of Islamism in Kashmir, which is likely to spread across India as well. So when you formally acknowledge, you set up a genocidal tribunal to investigate the crimes against humanity committed against Kashmiri Hindus. You investigate the people who were at the helm, as I said earlier, in Srinagar and in Delhi in January 1990, and especially on the day of 19 January 1990. And even if it amounts to investigating people who are no more, who are dead, do it posthumously, because justice must prevail. I have ensured my people, we ensured my people on this January 19, a firm resolve to ensure those people who are responsible for the genocide of Kashmiri Hindus will be brought to justice. This is our resolve. And also we'll resurrect our existence back home in Kashmir. This is our firm resolve. And how do you do that? First, about the genocide, when you set up a tribunal, you bring people to justice, and then rehabilitation. By the way, Kashmiri Hindus have authored a bill. It's called Pan Kashmir Genocide and Prevention of Atrocities Bill. It has been already circulated to all the parliamentarians of India. We want it to be brought as a private member's bill in the parliament of India to ensure no more genocide. India suffers no more genocides the way we Kashmiri Hindus have suffered in secular India. 40 years, I repeat, 40 years after independence of India. So when you bring people to justice, make people accountable for the genocide, then comes the settlement of Kashmiri Hindus back home. We have a Margdarshan resolution by the community. In fact, what's happening, what government of India is doing, we are so honored. The government of India is following what emerges out of Margdarshan. Article 370 had to go, 35 had to go. This was envisaged by us Kashmiri Hindus 30 years ago, in exile in Jammu. In that dharmic, I call it a mantra of Margdarshan, which also envisages a union territory upon Kashmir for Aborigine Kashmiri Hindus in the valley of Kashmir. We envisage the reorganization of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. It was our idea. I trust Amit Shah when he said in the Parliament of India that the reorganization process has begun and it will continue. Ladakh was liberated from the hegemony of Kashmiri Islamists. We are so proud of them. We are so glad for them. Jammu needs similar freedom from Kashmir, centering Kashmir origin hegemony of Islamist politics. Jammu deserves to be an independent state of India. You can see unconditional Indianness reverberate across Jammu. I don't know why that should be part of this mess called Jammu Kashmir Jihad. We have security reasons not to allow high-speed internet in Kashmir. But why should Jammu suffer because it's part of Jammu Kashmir Union territory today? Earlier it was part of the Jammu Kashmir state. All is well in Jammu. So Jammu has to become a state, and then there has to be a union territory of Kashmir, Pan Kashmir and Kashmir. There we go. We want Indian state in Delhi to be responsible for my security, for my political empowerment, for my economic empowerment, to be able to practice my faith in Kashmir, to be able to wear that Indian flag again on my chest again in Kashmir, where I can breathe free, where I can celebrate 15th of August and 26th January, like rest India celebrates in the rest of India. That's where we'll go. No back. I don't want to be in the neighborhood of Mehbooba Mufti or Abdullah Azhar, who were those so-called mainstream Islamists up there, who want to retain. This Gupkar gang is all about retaining the Muslim majoritarian character of Kashmir. This they say official. Yet we don't have audacity to check them and counter them. If this is not Islamism, what is? If this is not Jinnah's two-nation theory of supremacy and exclusivity of Islam being propagated from the so-called mainstream of Kashmir, then what is? When Farooq Abdullah in Lok Sabha elections, he fought from Srinagar constituency. What was his slogan there to the people of Kashmir? हमारे बच्चे नौकरी के लिए नहीं मरते, हमारे बच्चे टूरिज्म के लिए नहीं मरते, कौम के लिए मरते हैं. Qawm was Jinnah's qawm, Jinnah's nation, two-nation theory. And we have been putting what? Wool on our eyes. We don't want to see this. They desecrated our flag. Mainstream parties. When Mehbooba Mufti says, Jab tak Kashmir ka janda nahi, till you have our Kashmir flag back, I will not even touch Indian flag. What does it mean? We don't have, why should these people not be tried for treason? When Farooq Abdullah seeks help from China for restoration of Article 370. All this Islamo-fascist mindset, that's what I say, it is 370 was abrogated, does not mean Kashmir is all good. It will take ages to remove this mentality, to cleanse Farooq Abdullah and the likes of him of this mentality that Kashmir is supposed to be a Muslim majority state right under India's secular constitution. And all those, I also appeal to the people of India, not to call any Kashmiri a Kashmiri who chooses to call himself a Kashmiri Muslim, who wants to retain the Muslim majority character of Kashmir. Kashmir is Hindu Kashmir. I am a Kashmiri. They appropriated our identity. I'm supposed to be a Kashmiri Pandit, but they are supposed to be Kashmiris. Why? Call them what they are. They are Kashmiri Islamists, whether they are in mainstream or they are underground.
The question is, even if the idea of resettlement of Kashmiri Hindus back in the valley materializes, according to you, what drove them out in the first place was actually the active collaboration of their neighbors. How is that going to change, regardless of administrations or military or political equations?
First of all, I don't want to use this if it materializes. I have been living to see to the day then when we Kashmiri Hindus return back to Kashmir. It better materialize. If it does not, I assure you, it's a recipe for a balkanization of India. Kashmiri Hindu presence in Kashmir is very important, is integral to the future of India, to the integrity of India. Because you have to create the demographic border in Kashmir. As you rightly pointed out, you can't have always security forces. And I don't want to go back to the neighborhood. I said it. That's what we envisage the process of reorganization of Jammu Kashmir to continue. Jammu has to be a different state. We are demanding a union territory, centrally administered union territory of Panun Kashmir in the valley. We have given the geography of here that. We have given the boundaries of the union territory for where we can breed free as Indians. So we're not going back to those neighborhoods from where we were evicted. Not at all. Never. We are not going back to those neighborhoods.
That for a long time, the main narrative was the exodus or throwing out of Kashmiri Pandit and not Kashmiri Hindus. Do you think it was a propaganda to say that it is a problem of Pandits? And we know the stigma which is attached to the Pandits of this country. Somehow we have bear the burnt of it that yes, you were the reason why all the atrocities have happened in the society. So one is that, was that a propaganda? And now in the recent narrative, I can see that even the Kashmiris coming out and saying that it is not Kashmiri Pandits. Do not say that. It's the exodus of Kashmiri Hindus. So that's the question number one. Question number two, I am from Uttaranchal. Again, while it is connected to the country very well, you can very well imagine the Pahari, the states are somehow secluded. So now today I can see the unofficial, settlement of Muslims, whether they are from Bangladesh and other places. And looking at this thing, I always think that, do you think there is a need for the Indian state saying that all the religions which have come from outside, there is a need for these religions to blend with the culture, which means whether the Islamic culture, Christianity, it has to blend with the culture or we cannot survive. So your views on that?
Number one is about KPs. You see, Kashmiri Pandits, we don't call ourselves Kashmiri Pandits in Kashmir. It's an exonym given to us by the virtue of the fact that we engage ourselves in the pursuit of knowledge. And when you say Kashmiri Pandit, you are very right. We are attached to a particular caste of a Kashmiri Hindu society. That is why it was done deliberately. It is being still done. Well, it's with the Pandits, it's the Brahmins, it's the Hindus, the upper caste. So why should the rest of Hindu community think about it? This is the narrative that we have been trying to change all these years. That's why today, when I walk on the streets of before lockdown, I speak. I meet every person we don't ask each other. When I say revival of Sanatan traditions of India, as I say, my perspective on Kashmir is from overall Indian perspective. I see Kashmir is a national issue. It relates to India's integrity. It relates to the the survival of Sanatan civilization of India. Therefore, when I interact with an Indian, I forcefully make it a point where we are Indians. Wherever I get an opportunity, I say, forget your caste. Leave it behind at your home if you still love it. This is the reason that India fell to the foreigners, because one caste was played against another by our enemies. So number one, so KP, Kashmiri Pandits, We take pride in being in pursuit. In fact, that made us survive. Today, if I have retained my dignity, it's only because I followed the tradition of knowledge. We all got educated. We were on 100% literate community. We continue to be 100% community despite being in exile for the past 30 years, despite going deprivation, despite facing so many hardships. So that's one point. So you are very right. It was being done as a propaganda. As I say, they appropriated the ethnicity called Kashmiri. You also said the Kashmiris have started calling them Kashmiri Pandits, not Kashmiri Hindu, because they are not Kashmiris. They are Kashmiri Islamists who have this, who are conditional Indians in Kashmir are Kashmiri Islamists. Whether they eat in Delhi, those who say our relation with India is through only the Constitution of India, right? I won't say Vande Mataram because it's not written in the Constitution of India. I asked them, Constitution of India came into practice in 1950. What was your relation with the Indian nation from 1947 to 1950? They have no answers. So they are called them conditional Indians, contracted Indians. So don't expect them to merge with us. But I also see with the revivalism, Sanatani resurgence in India, we have so many Muslims being part of it. They claim themselves, they say, as you rightly pointed out, Hindu is our cultural identity. It's our Sanatani identity. Religion is a faith. You hold your faith, respect your faith. You have to claim to be an Indian. And for that, they have no qualms when they arrive on the shores of Arabia. When the immigration officials ask them, who are you? You have to speak. If you speak in Arabic, you have to say, Ana al-Hindi. If you translate it exactly into Hindi or in English, main Hindu hu, main Indian hu. If you have no calm to speak that in Arabic on the shores of Arabia, why are you hesitant in accepting that? You're right, ma'am. I agree with you. Our cultural identity is Hindu, Sanatani Hindus identity. And you could be belonging to any religion. I don't think government of India could do it. I think it has to be done by you and me. Government will do only what Indian people want. Generate that kind of public opinion so that the government takes note of it.
Yes, actually, I just had two queries rather. The one flaw I can point out in the Kashmiri Pandit movement is the lack of soft power to garner more international support. So, you have movies like Shikara coming out, which is a propagandist movie written coincidentally by a Kashmiri Pandit. You got individuals like Samir Kaul, who tom-toms as an oncologist and educated Kashmiri Pandit, but is kind of, sabotaging the movement. You have Justice Karju, who had very disparaging comments on 370. And you have, brave individuals like Aarti Tikku Singh and Sunanda Vashisht basically going to the US Congress. And, hats off to them for standing their ground, but they had no support whatsoever. Even amongst the international community, it was really sad to see it happen. So I think somewhere down the line, the international pressure is handicapping the government of India in terms of its willingness to grant a Panun Kashmir. Just wanted to know your take on that. And a second quick point I just wanted to ask you, and I'm going to take that name since you didn't, it would be Barkhada, Dilip Padgaonkar, Saeed Naqvi and their ilk. Can the KP movement create a forum for holding these people accountable? Because we have to make sure the legacy is tarnished so that in the future people would think twice before doing such things again, given the current state of social media. Those were the two queries I had, sir.
See, some of us are known not to sound politically correct. I speak what I think is the right, because my story is story of dharma. So I have no reason to camouflage it under any quoting. So I do that. So when you talk about, you named few people, Kashmiri Hindus, Kashmiri Pandits, who you believe are not, in a way, trying to supplement the overall effort of the community towards what we want. Look, how did Mughals establish their authority in India? We Hindus collaborated with them. How did Man Singh become the general of Akbar's army? This has been part of us. We have had Jai Chants in the community. So Kashmiri Hindus is part of the same Hindu setup, Hindu mindset. So we have some amongst us whose Hindu names are being used by Islamists to propagate their own ideologies. They are there. But there are so many of us, so many amongst us who are trying to reach out to the rest of India to awaken the masses in India. So I do not subscribe to the fact that I'm not being, my issue does not become serious just because my a few Kashmiri Pandits are collaborating with our adversary, for example. They are spokesperson of the mainstream parties. And the author you talked about, the Shikara was a movie that was claimed it was supposed to be a fiction. I am yet to hear, what about Shikara? Listen, all these years before Shikara, 40 years, 30 years before Shikara, how many movies were made by anybody on Kashmiri Hindus? Yet, I compliment whichever movie was made on Kashmir, be it Roja, be it Mission Kashmir. At least this gave you an idea of what Kashmir, what India has on hand in Kashmir. About these people trying to generate international pressure, we Kashmiri Hindus are active across India. When it was in support of CAA, Kashmiri Hindus have participated in whatever number, whatever manner across the world. When it comes to supporting Narendra Modi government for Article 370, we have been doing that across the world. But more than the international pressure, I can go tomorrow to UNO office and ask justice, ask UNO to put pressure on government of India to declare what Kashmiri Hindus suffered was genocide officially, because India is a signatory to UN Convention on Genocide. But is that right way of doing it? I want my Indians to come forward. I want Indian people, researchers in India, to put pressure on this gun. As I said, Article 370 was on the manifesto for BJP for many years. How did Narendra Modi gather such political spine, courage, and did this historical job? Because he knew that 130 crore Indians wanted it. And as I say, I repeat, we try to reach out to India. We cultivated that public opinion. We went to tehsils and zillas of across India. Small numbers we went, but then we saw so much of resonance there. So therefore, please do not count those individuals. And among those one authors who wrote who was a writer for the Shikara, he's also written a book. I compliment that book because that book writes a lot that exposes Indian secular hypocrisy. So I take the positive of that author, how he has contributed in highlighting the plight of Kashmiri Hindus. I don't know whether you have read his book, the Rahul Pandita's book. It's a historical is a historical collection, and I think you should read that book. I want everybody to read page number 235 of that book. It's about Mandhama massacre. In Mandhama massacre, only one boy had survived that massacre of Kashmiri Hindus. And during that night, these neighbors, the villagers of that place, so-called neighbors, they increased the volume of loudspeakers of the mosque to subdue the noise of AK-47. Those were being emptied on Kashmiri Hindus in Mandhama that night. It was a Shab-e Qadr night, auspicious night of so-called that community that night. One boy survived, and the Rahul Pandita quotes that boy in his book on this page number 235. When he came, the police and the district administration, everybody came in the morning, and the neighbors started, shedding crocodile tears. Hi, hamare neighbors mare gaye, hamare bhai mare gaye. And this boy had witnessed what was that horrible night. He had seen what these guys had done all through the night. That young boy, Vinod, he used that word, "Khabardar kisi haramzade ne kisi bhi lash ko haath lagaya." This is chronicled by Rahul Pandita. I salute him for that. But no journalist has talked about it. Barkha Dutt, I speak in front of her. She did that reporting from Kashmir, almost condoning the genocide of Kashmiri Hindus when she said all the jobs were occupied by Kashmiri Hindus. That's her, when she built her career on Kashmir. She called these Islamists who deserve to be tried for crimes against humanity, she called them stakeholders. Dilip Padgaonkar was the interlocutor. I have confronted him whenever I got an opportunity. But I could see how editorials and of these newspapers. I mean, in fact, I can claim that I was the only voice. If you guys followed letter to editor columns in Hindustan Times, the Times of India, I was the only alternate voice in those 150 words in Times of India and Hindustan Times. It was after a lot of struggle, they made me learn journalistic English, because they thought it was, my language wasn't compatible with their standards. I said, all right, let me learn that. I did it. And there was a bar. I could publish, my letter could be taken only once in a fortnight, while as pro-Kashmir separatism, pro-balkanization of India articles appeared and editorials appeared almost on daily basis. But I could my comment would be taken only once in a fortnight. So I have taken all these guys head on, and these guys need to be exposed. They are being exposed. Where is Barkhadat today? Where is the legacy of Dilip Padkong? And all these journalists, you are doing it, everybody else is doing it. Social media is so powerful. Everybody has that voice, and we are doing it, and we seek your support. More than the international community supporting, I think it has to be Indian people. I trust you. I want your support. Please speak for me. I have been able to communicate with you, empower with you about the situation in Kashmir. I repeat, Kashmir is not about Kashmiri Hindus alone. Kashmir is about the future of India. It's about the survival of Sanatani civilization of India. Please come together. Let's retrieve Kashmir from the jihadists, from the clutches of Islamists. And Panun Kashmir is the only way, Union Territory of Panun Kashmir is the only way where you can have unconditional Indianness flourish again in Kashmir.
सर मेरा प्रश्न यह है कि सर सबसे पहले इनको वोटिंग राइट्स दिया गया है और इनको राइट टू रिप्रेजेंटेशन दिया गया है आज भी भारत में, तो इसीलिए आप देख रहे हैं कि एसडीपीआई, पीएफआई जैसे संगठन, केएफडी जैसे संगठन है। सर मेरा सवाल ये है कि और एक सर जो चित्राल जो अंग था सर कश्मीर का, वो तो पाकिस्तान में चला गया, तो ये लोग और किस लिए लड़ाई कर रहे हैं सर? ऑलरेडी दे हैव गॉट द पार्ट ऑफ कश्मीर ना। Chitral, nobody remembers it now because you have Kalash staying over there. They are Proto-Vedic tribes. और एक सर जो बाइजूस में आईएएस का टैब है, उसमें कश्मीरी पंडित्स के बारे में बहुत घृणात्मक पूर्वक से बताया गया हुआ है सर कि you guys had all the highest jobs and you guys all had occupied a highest position. That's why Kashmiri Muslims were forced to create genocide on you all. So what's your pratikriya on this?
I said it, प्रतिक्रिया बस या आपका पहले तो नमस्कार, आपने दिलचस्पी के साथ सुना प्रश्न आपके, मैं आप कोशिश करता हूं जवाब देने की। Number one, you talked about, when you refer to Chitral, you're also talking about Gilgit-Baltistan. Look, I said it, with the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A, you're only beginning the process of dismantling of Islamo-fascistic ecosystem that flourished in Kashmir for 70 years. So the process has begun. Islamism cannot be vanquished totally. Muslim Brotherhood has survived more than 100 years. It's emerging in various forms in other countries. If Saudi Arabia has taken a backseat today in promoting Wahhabi Sunni Islamism across the world, is Turkey today emerging. Ironically, Ataturk, who made Turkey a secular state after the demolishing of Ottoman Empire. This Erdogan, the present president of Turkey, he's emerging to be a Khalifa. He thinks he's a Khalifa of custodian of Muslims of the world. Turkey is playing a major role as on today in propagating the idea of Kashmir Jihad. They are recording songs in Turkey written by national poets of Turkey, sung by renowned singers of Pakistan. They are recruiting mercenaries in the name of Kashmir Jihad. So Turkey is emerging. So wherever you have this Islamist mindset, this will survive. So what we can do in Kashmir, we can contain it. So Article 370 and 35A abrogation goes a long way in containing that Islamist pan-Islamism inspired vociferousness in Kashmir that has been there in Kashmir. That led to Kashmir Jihad. So Kashmir Jihad is a military problem. So there are two things. So I keep on telling the BJP spokesperson on the television debates also. With 370 abrogation of Article 370, you may claim from rooftop that everything is okay in Kashmir. It's not. Kashmir Jihad is live and kicking. My soldiers, brave hearts, are being martyred almost on daily basis there. And it's very ironic, they are dying, giving their martyrdom right on Indian soil, defending our soil, defending our people and property on the Indian soil. But in order to vanquish Kashmir Jihad, we have to shift the war theater of this jihad across LOC. What does that mean? We have to liberate Pakistan-occupied Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh. When I say Ladakh, Ladakh is Gilgit-Baltistan. You talked about Chitral. I'm just connecting everything. So our strategic imperatives in Kashmir have to be next, liberation of Gilgit-Baltistan, which is very strategically important for us. You see Galwan Valley, China is not only trying to trigger you in Kashmir, because China has in mind, has already taken cognizance of what Indian strategists have in mind. When we take Gilgit-Baltistan back, we get a land route to Afghanistan, into Central Asia, to Europe. It's very strategically important for us. And it also breaks the Pakistan-China corridor, entry of China into Indian Ocean via CPC. It's again, we can talk about it some other time, but it's again revival of not only Great Game, it's not only Cold War, it's a combination of Great Game and Cold War that you see in terms of India confronting Chinese Maoist expansionism in Ladakh, and also confronting and containing Pakistan on the west. So we have to have the target. I wish we didn't have this Kisan Andolan happening. I don't know, I have whatever little understanding I have of strategy of affairs. I think we could have done a lot this winter in terms of reaching that goal. So Gilgit-Baltistan has to be our strategic important. It's not just because Gilgit-Baltistan belongs to us legally. It's because it's also strategically important. And also, the people of Jammu Kashmir, the occupied Jammu Kashmir and Ladakh, they are today fed up with the Pakistani occupation. They were fighting their own wars. Niazi, this Imran Khan, when he came to Pakistan occupied Kashmir last year, the local Kashmiri Muslims called him Niazi, go back, go Niazi, go Nomad. That's his original name, Niazi. And in Gilgit-Baltistan, let me remind you people, I have in our Himachal Pradesh, there are in Uttarakhand, there are a lot many Baltis living there from Gilgit-Baltistan. Hardcore Sanatani Muslims. You meet them, you take pride in meeting them. So they're in Gilgit-Baltistan, today in Gilgit-Baltistan, which is under the occupation of Pakistan. Ordinary Muslim Gilgit-Baltistan Shia families, when they cook their dinner, they prepare 5, 6, 7, 8 chapatis extra. As a matter of ritual, it has become a tradition there. Depending upon the economic stature of that particular family, they make the extra chapatis. You know why? In anticipation of arrival of Indian forces to liberate them. And I think Gilgit-Baltistan is a hanging fruit. That should be a strategic target. Unless we shift this border, this theater, Kashmir Jihad theater, across LOC, make Pakistan bleed that it has been bleeding us for the past 30 years, we will not claim ever. We cannot claim that India is free from Kashmir Jihad. Local Baltis have preserved a 1,000-year-old Shiva temple there, trying to keep it away from the eyes of these Islamist Wahhabis of mainland Pakistan. So we have to reach out to them. It's our civilization obligation to liberate Gilgit-Baltistan immediately. And I think we should. I hope and pray that those who are at the helm of strategic affairs, they are on the job. Yes,
see, after Article 370, now every legality is there in Kashmir. So can't Supreme Court only declare that it was a genocide? And secondly, if army come, why can't we send our army with all the Kashmir Pandit and tell who were the people who supported the genocide and kill all of them?
Sir, the last question is also connected to this.
Yeah,
it was from Nandakumar Subramaniam or something. He says, is there an international model for resettlement of genocide affected communities back in Kashmir or in India? So maybe you can address these two together.
Yeah, okay. That's a very important question. And Supreme Court. About Supreme Court, I am a lawful Indian. I respect law. I respect the Constitution of India, despite the fact that this very Constitution, under this secular Constitution, Kashmiri Hindus suffered genocide. Very Supreme Court of India, with due honor, I've said in public platforms, Your Honor, you dismissed my plea. The Kashmiri Hindus had approached the Supreme Court of India, Honorable Supreme Court of India, with honor and dignity. You see, we have this fear of questioning the courts and the lawyers and the judges. I think as Indians, we have every right to question them with honor and dignity, not undermining the importance and the status of Supreme Court. Holding that high esteem, we must question. I'm a Sanatani Hindu. I question my God. I question every day during my conversation, my Shiva, I question my Shiva. So with honor and dignity, we went to the Supreme Court of India with a plea that please investigate the crimes that have been committed against us. You know what they did? The honorable judges of Supreme Court of India, they literally threw away our plea for our request and plea for justice. They say, where were you for the last 27? This happened 3 years ago. Where were you for 27 years? Where will we find the witnesses for you? This was Supreme Court of India, Honorable Supreme Court of India. With honor and dignity, I continue to question the wisdom. How could you do that? You're supposed to be the custodians of law, justice, human rights. Ultimate is Supreme Court. They did it. But I still have faith and hope in Supreme Court of India. The Supreme Court of India, if the state fails, we are putting pressure simultaneously on this government to take formally declare what Kashmiri Hindus suffered genocide. I also appeal again today, I do it on every platform, every time, Honorable Supreme Court of India, please take suo motu cognizance of what Kashmiri Hindus suffered with genocide. You look at Bangladesh. Again, I was on a seminar anchoring a show other day. One of the judges of Supreme Court of I think it was Supreme Court of Bangladesh. I admire their political will. The Razakas, the perpetrators of genocide of Bengalis in 1971, who collaborated with Pakistanis in inflicting the genocide of Bengalis. And by the way, most of the victims were Bengali Hindus of Bangladesh, the so-called East Pakistan that we had abandoned, Nehru and Congress had abandoned in 1947, right? This present government, Sheikh Hasina Wajid's government, she's so politically strong. They are trying the perpetrators after how many years? This was 1971. 50 years after the genocide, those perpetrators some of them are 80 plus years old. They are being hanged. And my Supreme Court tells me where we would find the witnesses. Look, irony is, we don't know how many of our fell prey to the jihadis in Kashmir, how many of us died. Government of India says 293. That's the official document which gave years ago. They have not even added onto it, which happened afterwards, because genocide did not end in 1990. It continued for many years till every Kashmiri Hindu left that place. Many had chosen to stay back in far-flung areas and villages. It is in India, right under India's secular watch, right under the Supreme Court of India, it has been left to the survivors of genocide to count their dead. It's our activists who are counting their dead. We have made a list of 1,800 plus people. My activists have done it. They have collected the figures, their addresses, their names, and how they and the situations in situations they were in, how they were eliminated, they were killed. So I agree with you. We have to create pressure, and that can happen only by appealing people like you. That's what I'm addressing. Sangam Talks is a very influential platform. I expect people to take cognizance of what we are talking about it and put pressure on the Supreme Court of India to take suo motu cognizance. Can you imagine? This court, I take pride in this court of my Supreme Court of India. They opened it in the middle of the night to hear the plea of that terrorist, the jihadist Maiman. In the middle of the court, in the middle of the night, Justice Supreme Court of India opened up to hear the last, to save that guy from the gallows, which those secular liberals try to do that. But my plea, the Kashmiri Hindus' plea, was rejected with the comment that where will we find the witnesses? Witnesses are there. One of them is in this sitting in Tihar jail finally. And I'm looking forward to the day that these guys will be hanged, and I'm sure they will be hanged. I'm sure my people, you people are going to come forward. You come out and support me, sir, because it's not, I repeat, it's not about Kashmiri Hindus. Unless jihadists of Kashmir are accounted for, you will not be able to crush the growing Islamist tendencies across India. PFI, so you talked about, somebody talked about PFI. You know their links, yet we feel handicapped. What they did in Shaheen Bagh, they repeated the same slogan of Jinnah, Tera Mera Rishta Kya La ilaha illallah, but this time it was under the flag of under tricolor. They do not consider this spiritual land, their spirituality, their spiritual affiliation. I have no complaints about it. You have spiritual loyalties, faith-related loyalties with a different land. Please have that. But your land is supposed to be this. This is your birthplace. You cannot be conditional Indians. So I cannot trust conditional Indians. I also cannot, what is going around in the world, wherever there is a substantial demographic change, I warn you guys, I warn my people of India, this secular constitution will remain secular till Hindus are in a particular percentage in majority. The day this figure goes down, this constitution will also change. And you saw it when Shah Bano case happened. This constitution was changed only to please a particular segment of society. And it was the ruling of Supreme Court, the highest court, the custodian of human rights and justice and law, was overruled by the Constitution of India to please a particular community in Shah Bano case. So can you imagine? I also see one of the parliamentarians, I've heard him, I don't want to name him. He said, we could not save Memon, because it's in the context, because we're talking about Memon, because we don't have that kind of collaborative approach and majority in the Parliament of India. So that man, that Razakar, who comes from the family of Razakars, who inflicted genocide in Hyderabad, they wanted to be part of Pakistan, right? So his political agenda is based on the fact that he wants to have like-minded people in the Parliament of India to save people like Memon, the jihadis like Memon. You can imagine what all he could be having in mind. So therefore, your constitution is secular as long as we Hindus are in a particular demographic order in India. The day it is reduced, you will have Kashmirs in every nook and corner of India. I told you about Kerala jihadists died combating Indian army in Kashmir way back. There is a very infamous case which carried on in the courts of Kerala. It's called Kashmir recruitment conspiracy case. Mind it, they didn't put any jihadi name to it. It's called Kashmir. I want all of you to go to the net and read about this. Kashmir recruitment conspiracy case. It was about recruitment of jihadists to fight Kashmir Jihad against the Indian state. This is from deep south in Kerala they came. And no wonder the maximum contribution to Islamic State from India is from Kerala. It continues there. So unless you all get together, think what India is undergoing, what India is on hand, please, Kashmir Jihad is about Ghazwa-e-Hind. They have eyes on Lal Killa in Delhi. Kashmir is a mere passage to capture Delhi. Keep that in mind, please.
What I interpret from your talk is that it was not just the Islamists which occupied Kashmir and led to the genocide. It was, as you say, secular India. It was also the government of India, and to be very specific, the Congress government of all these 70 years that turned a blind eye.
Successive governments, I say successive governments have tried to undermine the genocide of Kashmiri Hindus. I say even the last government of Narendra Modi government, till 5th of August, I think Narendra Modi will be remembered in the history forever because he showed that political spine What he did is momentous. As whatever little understanding I have of history and a bit what I can envisage in future, unless we take measures or we do something what we must do, 5th August 2019 will go in the history. Narendra Modi has made his place. What all he's doing for India, that can be a political debate. Political parties can have a debate on that. But as an Indian, for me, my nation is more important. If my India survives, then you have employment, then you have economy, then everything. If my India does not survive as a home to thousands of years of Sanatan civilization, then my constitution is of no worth. So what he did in 5th August, it has demoralized those forces. It's not only about Kashmir trying to bring Kashmir into the mainstream. It has demoralized those forces who thought Kashmir is gone. Next we can create in somewhere in India. Don't forget, 90% of those, I have no hesitation in saying that, because two-nation theory is history, is a fact. Two-nation theory was what? Hindus and Muslims cannot live together. And those Muslims who propounded those theory, who worked on fought elections on those theory, those Muslims do not come from Mars. They do not come from Arabia. They were India born. On what happened on 14th of August 1947, it was a test to test their loyalties. You know what they did instead? When you talk about 1857, we fought together. It wasn't. We can talk about some other day. But the test was 14th of August 1947. It was millions of India-born Indians. They betrayed their motherland. I call their great day of great betrayal. They betrayed their motherland on 14th of August 1947, chose to follow Jinnah's two-nation theory in the name of Islam, and created Pakistan. And ironically, 90% of them did not go to Pakistan. They stayed back. Muslim League that divided India, that added I to its suffix, it became Indian Muslim League. And some of the principal proponents of idea of Pakistan, they stayed back, came back to the Indian politics, became parliamentarians. They are still called Baba-e-Qaum in South India. And we try to camouflage that, because you gave history to some people who had no idea of what Sanatani civilization of India to write the history of India. Everything was faked. It's not only about Kashmir. You have Rohingyas fighting in Kashmir. One of the terrorists there, he's called Burmi. They call it different. We can have a different debate someday, together. Which are forces are fighting in Kashmir? They are out there because they think this is part of the same Ghazwa-e-Hind, Muhammad bin Qasim's Hind, to occupy Kashmir. So please get up. We have huge challenges ahead. With Article 370 gone, it's only half the war. I don't say half the war won. We still have most of the war to be won. And for that, I think it's a test for all of us.